During elections, the electorate must understand their community's most pressing environmental issues and elect those that would help solve them. Legislations by politicians can affect the air we breathe, the water we drink, the land, and generally our well-being. On Green Angle today, we have the presidential candidates of the Young Progressive Party, YPP, and the Providence People's Congress, PPC, to understand their green agenda for Nigeria.
Okay, thanks for joining us, Mr.
Yes.
Kingsley, on the program.
I'll
first ask you, what is your green agenda for Nigeria?
Well, thank you. My green agenda for Nigeria is to make sure that we protect our environment and that we focus our economic development goals and plans on the basis of a strategy of renewable, for example, in the power sector, based on a reduction of greenhouse gases and chlorofluorocarbons that damage Nigeria's environment and affect us badly ecologically. Managing the environment by regulating, the environment much more strongly than I think has been the case. We have an environmental protection and regulatory agency, the National Environmental Standards Regulatory Agency. But as president, I'm going to give the work of that body very high priority because we haven't seen the kind of effects that we should have seen. My economic agenda is to move Nigeria away from depending on oil towards an economy that is driven by innovation.
Absolutely. Talking about not depending on oil, part of that also means that Nigeria must stop gas flaring if they are
Yes.
taken seriously.
Absolutely.
Do you think that can stop if you become the president?
Yes, and we're going to have to turn gas into much better and productive use instead of flaring it.
Yeah, it's very tough.
I know it's tough. But a lot of things are tough. But the problem and the reason why it looks like a lot of things cannot be done is that we've been electing politicians, not leaders.
Talking about making the lives of Nigerians better, there are funds set out for managing the ecology,
Yes.
ecological funds.
Yes.
Nobody knows what happens to those funds. They're mismanaged.
It's one of those black holes in Nigerian politics.
How do you make things different with the governors who are expected to take care of these funds for their particular states?
We have to set up a mechanism of transparency for the ecological funds and just for governance generally. I've said it before, if we are submitting a budget in my presidency to the National Assembly, that budget will undergo forensic audits before it is submitted, so there will be no budget padding. So we have to set up a mechanism to open up environmental funds to scrutiny. What is it used for? Who gets it? It's a mindset problem. If you have the mindset to do the job, you may not achieve everything, to be realistic, but you will achieve a lot of things, and that's progress.
Okay, let's talk about our water resources.
Yes.
And how our people, the fishermen, are suffering
Yes.
because we have foreigners who come and literally scrape our water resources.
Yes.
This now is gone international. This bringing diplomacy there. How
Yeah.
do you manage this?
Yeah. Well, of course, I'm an expert in international diplomacy and international law and international treaties. No president does everything. What you do is that you appoint for specific tasks the right kinds of people. Once you have the right types of people who have the knowledge, the competence, and the will to transform those areas, you will find things begin to move. So in the area of water resources and in terms of protecting our national interests, so we have to strengthen our own regulatory agencies, whether in the areas of fisheries or whether, in every aspect of our economic life.
We have industries that come to Nigeria.
Yes.
They provide jobs.
Yes.
Employment.
Yes.
But on the other hand, they're destroying the environment.
No,
They're
environmental.
exposing our Nigerian workers to
Yes.
toxic, atmosphere spaces while they work.
Look at the Ogoni cleanup. Has it happened? Environmental degradation has rendered the Niger Delta poor. So environmental issues are attached to poverty directly. I think that the question of environmental degradation in the Niger Delta has has very fundamentally negative impacts. But we have not had a government that has been able to take this on. I will. And we must make people conscious of the importance of doing everything in a sustainable manner. Our development has to be sustainable.
There is the problem of desertification in northern Nigeria.
Absolutely.
And there's a connection to security.
Yes, this is also another dimension.
And of course, the movement of herders.
Yeah. We are going to deal with that at the source. We are going to turn a lot of those deserts in northern Nigeria into farmland through the use of innovative technology in agriculture.
Do you think that would be easy? Politics, you be in charge,
yes.
Do you think that would be very easy?
Yeah, so what you do is to engage in participatory governance. You bring the stakeholders in the areas of the northeast or the northwest where these problems are found. And you explain to them the win-win, the enlightened self-interests of their communities in this outcome happening. So they get the buy-in. And make sure that there's accountability for any crime.
Accountability, financial accountability. The Great Green One project has so far failed in many parts of northern Nigeria, northeast Nigeria. For example, in Katsina State, where they've said because of security, they tried to plant trees, but nobody followed up on these projects, and the money literally went down the drain. That's also corruption in environmental management.
Yes. There are projects that are meant to secure the environment or protect them. They will be subjected to project management. That means they must be finished on time, they must be finished under budget, and they must be finished according to the right standards.
Nigeria has an energy mix, according to this government.
Yes.
A mix of nuclear energy. How would you think we should power Nigeria? National grid or mini grids for states? Mini
grids for states or regions. That's what I think we should do. We should stop the national grid approach. Under my government, we will take the hydroelectric and the gas fossil-powered electricity and focus it more at industrial production zones like Kano, like Lagos, like Aba or Onitsha. And then we're going to create a market for renewable energy.
GMOs?
Yes, genetically modified organisms in food. Yeah.
What do you think?
I'll take a scientific, it's like global warming or climate change. It is supported by science. So as a president, I must take it seriously. You cannot take an ideological approach to things like that. If it is supported by evidence that it's not good for Nigerians, I will follow that evidence. But if it's not supported by evidence, then we have to look at it. Why not? But I think that we can produce enough food for our people, have food security in this country with normal forms of agriculture that benefit from innovation. For example, high-yield seedlings that produce much more over a small acreage. A lot of that innovation is not necessarily GMO-type innovation. It's not, and it's safe. So we will go more along those areas.
You think Nigerians deserve a healthy environment?
Of course they do.
It's part of their human rights.
It is the part of their human rights. I mean, you know, our environment is God's creation, and we have a responsibility to manage it, you know, to be sustainable for our children and our grandchildren. You can't destroy the earth, either out of ignorance or out of malice or out of poverty or out of greed. I'm going to declare an environmental disaster emergency across this country as president because it is called for. Go across many big cities, waste dumps on the streets. I mean, this is such a hazard. So managing our environment is really going to be a top priority, and people must be re-educated, you know, to understand it.
Wildlife conservation.
Yes.
Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians they need to eat.
Yes.
They need to kill these animals to
yes.
eat. Sometimes they are poached for money.
Yes.
Outside, and our trees are cut down.
Yes.
For furniture outside Nigeria.
Yes. Now you cannot use the need to eat to justify the destruction of wildlife, which should be preserved. You see what I'm saying? You provide alternative sources. The economic vision of my government, which is going to be based on breaking the back of poverty, How do you do that? 3 things. Young people need to have access to education and literacy. People need to have access to skills. We're going to set up skills training centers across the 774 local government areas of Nigeria. The third part is access to finance. If you provide these 3 things, you are shifting the opportunity towards what is more productive and sustainable rather than what is harmful. People cutting down trees and deforesting the whole environment, or you know, people hunting down, you know, rare species and which need to exist so that we can maintain the right eco-balance in nature.
Yeah, and that could help us boost our eco-tourism potentials.
Exactly. If we keep what we have properly and manage it properly, we can make money from it by bringing tourists to come and look at those things. But we manage them well. We leave things in nature. You must manage things in the modern world. You must find a way of using what we have to earn money. My green agenda when I become president of Nigeria in 2019 is to set Nigeria on the path to sustainable development. That means that we must turn environmental hazards into economically productive opportunities. I will focus on make sure that the cleanup of the Ogoniland oil spillage is actually done. We will work on desertification of northern Nigeria, turning the deserts into agriculturally productive land in order to stop the economic pressures on herdsmen, which contributes to our security problem. I am really going to work on, you know, all environmental problems with as a matter of priority. We will, in everything that we do, make sure that we reduce the threat of climate change and global warming in our country.